Roger Abrantes from the Ethology Institute in Cambridge. Today I'm going to answer a question. Can dogs detect our emotions in our facial expressions? It all started in 1984. In my book Psychology Rather Than Power, I suggested to dog owners that they should pay special attention to their facial expressions and that they should use them as one of the means to control their dog's behavior. I described a reinforcer consisting of a particularly dog-friendly facial expression, maintaining eye contact with the dog and displaying it in order to reinforce the dog's behavior. My suggestion at the time was based on personal experience and many observations, but my team had no possibility to conduct a proper scientific test. It was in a way a bit of a bold statement, because I didn't have any scientific proof. However, I maintained my belief in facial expressions in my next books. In 1994, I transcribed a facial expression into SMAF for the first time. SMAF is a special language that we designed in order to transcribe precisely all the signals that we use when communicating with our animals. I transcribed it as mimic, which in Danish means facial expression, and I even showed pictures of how to use it. In dog language in 1997, the first original was published in 1985, I mentioned the dog's ability to read our facial expressions and body language on several entries. And in 1999, in my book Dogs Home Alone, I even show a picture of a dog-friendly facial expression. 23 years later, Dr. Gu's team vindicated my words in a proper scientific way. Dr. Kim Gu from the University of Lincoln in the UK and his team published a paper called Left Gaze Bias in Human Infants, Rhesus Monkeys and Domestic Dogs. It was published in Perception number 36. And it was presented in August 2007 from August 27th to 31st at a conference on visual perception in Arezzo, Italy. They had obtained evidence that dogs show a left gaze bias when scrutinizing human faces, just like we do. So the answer is now yes, dogs detect human emotions in our facial expressions. And it worked like that. The left side of the brain is more involved with displaying emotion than the right side. And as a consequence, the right side of the human face, which is controlled by the left side of the brain, expresses emotion more clearly. The left side of the human face is controlled by the right and less emotional hemisphere of the brain, and does not express emotion as well. And interestingly enough, monkey faces and photographs of animate objects and other dogs did not produce the left gaze bias. It was only when looking at human faces that the dog showed exactly the same left gaze bias that we do when examining one another's faces. And these findings suggest that dogs have evolved toward an increase in their ability to decipher, to decode human behavior, which is not surprising at all, taking into consideration our common evolutionary history. So what are the consequences of these findings? Well, the first is that, yes, we can use our facial expressions to help us communicating with our dogs. We can use them to increase or decrease the frequency, intensity, and or duration of a given behavior. The second is that it throws more light into the question of whether we should use mechanic or verbal reinforcers. A study that we conducted in 2002 showed that both verbal and mechanic reinforcers were equally efficient, though with different characteristics. And these led me to classify verbal reinforcers as semi-conditioned reinforcers, since the words we choose, they are conditioned, of course, but the accompanying facial expressions are not conditioned. Mechanic reinforcers, like the click sound of a standard clicker, are better for some purposes. And the verbal reinforcers like my own dukti, good job, good dog, etc. are better for other purposes. It is not a question of either or, it is rather a question of using the right tool for the right job at the right moment. I use a hammer to fasten a nail in a wall, and I use a screwdriver to fasten a screw. Likewise, mechanic reinforcers are better for mechanic behavior, not depending particularly on the contact with the owner. For example, when creating muscle memory. I use clickers to train rats to detect the TNT of a landmine or the TB in saliva samples from patients. On the other side, verbal reinforcers are better to reinforce behaviors where we need the attention of the dog. We need the dog focused on us. I use verbal reinforcers, my very own dukti dating from 1984, to train dogs many of the skills that we need in our daily communication. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.